Good evening and welcome from Washington, where in a rare move, Congress ejected one of its own today, the third time that's happened since the Civil War. The House voting to expel George Santos, the New York Republican, whose short time in Congress has been buffeted by a series of legal and ethical controversies and accusations. A fellow House member now saying he, too, was a victim of Santos's alleged financial misdeeds. The House on a 311 to 114 vote, including over 100 Republicans, sending Santos packing. His name unceremoniously removed from the door of his former congressional office. Behind that door literally now stands an open seat in a Congress where Republicans control with an already razor-thin margin. Ryan Nobles is here on Capitol Hill tonight with more on today's drama.
Tonight, the George Santos saga is over. Within hours of his House colleagues voting to make him just the sixth member in history expelled from office, crews were changing the locks on his Washington office doors. The normally vocal Republican, who rarely shied away from the cameras, brushed by them as he left the Capitol for the last time.
Congressman, what do you say to your constituents?
Excuse me. You guys got to get out of my way.
311 members voted to remove Santos, 105 of them Republicans, going against party leadership. House Speaker Mike Johnson and the other top three members of the GOP conference voted to let him stay. There were concerns about their narrow majority and the precedent now set.
I didn't make the vote to expel him. This starts us on a bad path, in my opinion.
But even right before the vote, new allegations against Santos were coming in. GOP Congressman Max Miller wrote a letter to his colleagues accusing Santos of illegally charging thousands of dollars to his and his mother's credit cards. Miller writing, "We have spent tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees in the resulting follow-up." It adds to the list of accusations against Santos, including a House ethics report that said he used campaign funds to buy designer clothes, casino trips, and on the website OnlyFans. Prior to his election to Congress, a disabled veteran accused Santos of stealing money from a donor drive to raise money for his sick service dog. A federal indictment claimed he defrauded donors and laundered campaign money. Santos has pleaded not guilty to all the charges, but the constant controversy surrounding him proved to be too much for most members.
I mean, he stole from his donors. He lied about his whole biography. And there has to be accountability. We got to have a higher standard.
Back in Santos's district on Long Island, most of his now former constituents are ready to move on.
I think he should have been gone a long time ago.
He got what he deserved. He got what he asked for. It's as simple as that. He tried to push the envelope, and he went right out the window.
New York's governor posting today that within 10 days, she'll set the date of the special election to replace Santos.
And Ryan, how will this impact the balance of power in the House?
Well, Lester, with Santos's expulsion, the Republicans, only have a 3-seat majority. And there's the possibility that 2 more Republicans could leave their seats in the future, including the former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. If that happens, they would only have a 1-vote margin.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.